Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to all participants participating in this seminar on Zoom. Today we are delighted to have with us Professor Dr. Bruce Gilley from the Matt O. Hatfield School of Government, Portland State University, Oregon, the United States. Dr. Bruce Gilley is going to present his lecture on ending the cancer of reflexive citations in research, based on his personal experience and ideas. So we are here at the COLA conference room at the College of Local Administration, and also participants also joining in the Zoom online meeting. And the talk will be starting from now until 11:30. So we will have not only just the lecture, but we will all have the discussion Q&A session. So you can directly, those who are participating in the Zoom meeting, you can directly discuss with Dr. Gilley at the end of his talk. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dean Pirasit Kamnun-Singh to give his welcome and opening remark for this session.
Good morning, Professor Bruce Gilley and my colleagues and all the audience who are participating. It is a special event and a new topic that I never heard before. I mean, just the title itself, I never heard it before in this concept, but this is something that Professor Bruce have told me in his personal conversation with him, that this is a new trend, a new problem emerging among the scholar of today's, which is worrying, a sign. So I think this is a special event that COLA, and an honor that COLA has organized this event, because I'm sure this is the first time we ever talk about this topic in Thailand. I don't know where else in the world, maybe in the United States, but somewhere else. But I can assure you that this is the first time that we really talk about this. And I think, again, also there is an emerging sign, an emerging trend, I should say, that this problem may happen in Thailand. And me personally, I admit that in many occasions, I do not really follow what the author did in the citation. So I would like to invite Professor Bruce Gilley to give a lecture on this, and maybe this is a personal conversation, discussion among us, because I think the subject matter, the topic, lend itself for group discussion. Then it's a one-way lecture. So thank you, and please I welcome Professor Bruce Gilley. So give him a big hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Pirasit and Associate Dean Prichwat and Associate Dean Lauchakam. And welcome to everyone. I think that was the dean's subtle way of telling me to keep this short, so I will keep it short. And as he says, it's a new topic. I wish it were a new problem in research, but it's not. The more I've prepared this talk, the more I realize this problem probably goes back to the 1970s, and it has exploded in all kinds of academic and non-academic research in the last 20 years. And it has reached a crisis proportion. And I think the alarm bell should be ringing in every academic discipline, in every university, in every research field. We have a problem of what I call reflexive citations. Sometimes you hear the term junk citations, garbage citations, inappropriate citations, whatever you want to call it. I use the term reflexive because reflex, I mean like a knee-jerk citation. I don't think about it. I don't read it. I don't know what it says. I just supposed to dress it up like a like I'm getting my Christmas tree ready for Christmas and put all kinds of lights and ornaments on it. And this has become a cancer. So I use the term cancer advisedly, but I do think this is a cancer. It is eating away at the heart of what it means to be a scholar and what it means to seek knowledge. So it's the bee in my bonnet, and I'm very grateful to the Dean for allowing me to share my bee in the bonnet. Okay, reflexive citations. So let me start with a quotation from one of the few scholars who actually has written and worked extensively on this. Of course, the more I looked into it, the more I realized there's quite a bit of work that's been done on this, although I don't think it's reached the sort of, as the Dean says, it's not talked about here. It's certainly not talked about in my home institution at Portland State. I don't think it's talked about at Harvard or Yale or Princeton either, for that matter. So nobody is blameless here. And let me just put this quotation up from Dr. Ole Bjorn Rekdal. He says, "At times I get the feeling that references have been placed in quantities and with a degree of precision reminiscent of last-minute oregano flakes being sprinkled over a pizza on the way to the oven." Dr. Rekdal is a scholar of anthropology who has kind of got a side business in exposing citation malpractice in academia. And he's written several articles. This is one of his best, called Monuments to Academic Carelessness in Science, Technology, and Human Values, 2014, page 745. It's something I'll come back to, but you know where that comes from, and you can go look up the page and tell me if I've misquoted him. This is a general kind of sense that he has after years of looking at this. And I like the sort of metaphor here. I'm baking my pizza. My research is a beautiful pizza, and I need to make it look pretty and tasty and spicy. So I've got to throw something. Oh, here's some oregano in my spice cabinet. And let's throw some citations around. And oh, doesn't it look scholarly? Doesn't it look authoritative? I bet everyone will be convinced because those last-minute oregano flakes that I sprinkled on my pizza. This is the problem that we're dealing with. And I'll go through several examples of this, but I think as a general statement of the problem, that's as good as I've seen. So let's start with an example. This is an example I've pulled from one of the leading, probably the leading journal article in my field, comparative politics, called Comparative Political Studies, okay? And, this is totally, you look at this and you're like, what's wrong with this, right? I see this all the time. So let's just read it. One can identify this is the literature review section, several of those traditions following Thielen, 2003's research. Okay. Whatever that is, whoever she is, whatever that said. Economic institutionalism, blah, 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 blah. Acemoglu and Robinson, 2006. North, 1990. Sociopolitical institutionalism, blah, 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 blah. Bueno Mesquita, 2003. Migdal, 2001. Historical institutionalism, blah, 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 blah. Mahoney, 2001. Streekenthal in 2005. This is terrible practice. Why? These citations tell the reader nothing. We don't know who these authors are. We don't know what their research is. We don't know if they call themselves according to these categories. We don't know what page number the author is citing. We don't even know if the authors would agree that they belong in that citation. We might actually discover they would like to opt out of being cited in this article based on how they're being used here. But this is rampant in all research. What are the problems? Do these scholars call themselves according to these categories? Who knows? The author here says they do, but we're supposed to just trust the author. Secondly, what sort of research in particular is being cited here? And what are the evidence that is used in this research? We don't know. We just have name, date, name, date, name, date. How about this? Are there scope limits to their findings? Are these general theories of institutionalism? Or is this someone studying northern Nigeria in the 1920s, right? What page number can I find their general summary of their research that would allow me to substantiate this citation as confirming the claim being made about a particular theory? And most dangerously, has the author read it? Did this author even read these works that he or she is citing? This is toxic. This is pervasive, and this is toxic. And I'm not sure who this author is. I think I know who this author is. This author's me. This is my article. This is my article from 2008 in Comparative Political Studies. And when I look on that back, I feel ashamed to see myself engaging in terrible citation practice. But obviously the peer reviewers didn't notice it. Obviously their journal readers didn't notice it. Nobody cares, right? This is the norm. We see this all the time. We're so numb to this that we think that this is best practice, but it's not. It violates every canon of citation excellence. A study was published last year in Proceedings of the Royal Academy A, which is the mathematics journal of the Royal Academy. They did a rigorous study. So there's a lot of anecdotal evidence of bad citations, but they decided to do a real rigorous study. So they took the top 5 scientific journals in various fields in 2017. They looked at 248 citations for claims in articles published in 2017 in those top 5 journal articles. They hired research assistants to code, to look at every citation. They found that 25% of the claims that were used to substantiate the citation, the citation were used for the claim, that in those 25%, so fully a quarter of the citations were either partly or wholly unsubstantiated by the citation. That means the citation did not show what the claim in the paper said it should show, or worse, the bigger proportion of that 25%, 13%, so more than half of the errors had no logical connection to the citation. It wasn't even in the same topic area. It was a totally different topic and conclusion. So this is in top scientific journals, okay? This is not in Jane Austen studies. This is in journals where people are taking science and using it to make life and death decisions about society. And we find 25% of the citations are partly or wholly unsubstantiated, or worse, have no logical connection to the citation. My guess is this is an undercount, right? And my guess is if we were to go into the non-science journals, social sciences, the policy sciences, education studies, architecture, we would find that the problem is worse. Bad citations can be deadly. This is one of the most famous ones. 1980, a 5-sentence letter was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the top journal in medicine. It was basically a letter written by a couple of doctors at a hospital in Montreal who said that they gave opioids to their patients and nobody ever got addiction problems. This 5-sentence letter, this is not a study, this was a letter, some offhand research from these doctors in a hospital, was heavily and uncritically cited as evidence that addiction was rare with long-term opioid therapy. This study came out, some doctors at the University of Toronto, led by Pamela Lung, wrote another letter to the New England Journal called the 1980 Letter on the Risk of Opioid Addiction. This is the citation of those 5 sentences across time, okay? And the dark blue line are positive citations, okay? Problem was the letter was a letter. They were citing just their random going through their records. They weren't talking about prescription of opioids. They were talking about the application of opioids in a hospital setting, right? And they didn't define addiction either. Why? Because it was just a letter. But this citation of this letter took on powerful role in the justification for opioid prescriptions. It was cited as a landmark study in the New York Times. It was a 5-sentence letter. It was not a landmark study. So bad citations can be deadly. This citation is one that is kind of maybe more significant because of its consequences, but bad citations is not just not being a good scholar, but it can cause an opioid crisis, as this one did. Okay, so let's do some basics. Citations should do 2 things in research. First of all, citations should justify a claim by referring to the logical and or empirical evidence of the cited work. It's not enough to put a name and a date without telling the reader, what is this research that you're referring to, at the very least, right? Secondly, a citation may simply be used to refer to the work of others. But if we simply refer to the work of others in, for example, a literature review, we should describe it in sufficient detail to allow readers to understand what is being cited. Even if this is not being used to justify a claim, at least we should use it to provide the reader with information on what this work is. In all cases, a citation should provide accurate and specific information about the cited work, such as the research methods, the context, the scope conditions, the specific conclusions, and the page numbers. The more I thought about this, I thought that this is fundamentally an issue of respect. This is an issue of respect as a scholar and as a researcher. First of all, this is respect for the cited source itself. We should be treating that cited source with care and honor. It's not just a stepping stone for your professional ambition. It's not just a means to an end. It's also an end unto itself, because this cited work, this scholar, is a participant in social values. This is kind of making sure we don't treat other scholars as just rungs on the ladder, that we pull ourselves up and trample underfoot on our way to our promotion or our highly cited article. Okay, these cited sources are participants in social values. Second of all, respect for your reader. Treat your reader as an intelligent person who is deserving of careful and truthful accounts of the work of others. Don't cheat them. Don't deceive them. Don't treat them as if they don't need to know. They're just supposed to trust you because you're a very reliable person, okay? And then at the deepest level, it's respect for yourself as a researcher, right? Why did you get into this business? To fake it until you make it? Is that really what you're all about as a researcher? Is throwing oregano flakes around? Or do you actually care about what you're doing? Do you care about your research? Do you care about the issues at stake? I mean, I think at fundamental level, it's about your respect of yourself, right? And you respect yourself, you will respect your reader, and you will respect your cited sources. Okay, so let's go through some examples. And I've got 11, and I know Dean Pearson wants us to go fast, so I'll try and go fast. Not okay, making assertions. Geography is a determinant of policy of poverty. We all know that. You don't believe me? Smith, Jones, Allen, there. That's not okay. Why? That doesn't tell me anything. That's a trust me, that's an assertion and trust me approach. Better would be, several recent studies have looked at the general relationship between poverty and geography using a case study, for example, Smith, large-scale data, for example, Jones, or interpretive approaches, for example, Allen. At least in that second citation, I'm telling you something about their method. And maybe that's even not enough, but at least it's better, right? It's not just this rapid-fire machine gun of citations. Okay, ignoring the details. Comment. Smith shows geography is a determinant of policy of poverty. Smith, 1998. Oh, okay. Well, that may be his general finding, but what's the actual detail? Smith, using a structured case comparison between two medium-sized villages in Thailand in 1992-3, to conclude that the geographical factor accounted for approximately 2/3 of the difference in average income between the two villages. 1998, pages 32 to 36. The second one is better because, first of all, it's not a general study. Second of all, it was conducted in a time and a place. Thirdly, it concluded that 2/3, not all. And if you want further information, that's the place to look, pages 32 to 36, okay? Ignoring the details of our cited works. Putting words in their mouth. This is my favorite one. We all know that Francis Fukuyama believed that democracy was the end of history, right? We all know that. We don't need to read that book. Fukuyama 92, democratic triumphalism. Actually, that's not what he said. That's putting words in his mouth. Fukuyama considered Hegel's end of history approach in his study of global democracy, finally concluded that the evidence was, quote, provisionally inconclusive, unquote, about whether democracy would even endure in the world, much less be the end of history. Page 339, if you don't believe me, okay? That's literally twisting the meaning of a scholar's work. using op-eds from the New York Times as the basis for your citation. Okay, not good enough. Urban legends. How about this one? Maybe you don't know this one in Thailand. This is common in the Americas. There are more than 200 different words used by Eskimos to describe snow. Wikipedia. We all know that's true, right? No, it's nonsense. There's more words in English to describe snow than there are in any of the Inuit languages. Martin was the first to expose this back in 1986. That's why I say this problem is old standing, a lot of these problems. The structure of Eskimo grammar means that the number of words for snow is literally incalculable because it's basically a conclusion that is inescapable for any other root as well, because the language is structured right through roots and then additions to the root. So you take the root for snow and you add any number of thousands of words behind it, and you have thousands and millions of words for snow, of course, because it's the structure of their grammar, right? Urban legends proliferate through bad citation practice. We hear someone else say it, someone else said it and cited it, so we say it and cite it, and it's false. Right? Urban legends are rampant. Pageless documentation. Again, this is important about details. Jones made a point of distinguishing his conclusions from those of Thomas, whose work he believed was inferior. Jones. Well, let's go to the page and what he said. Jones made a point of distinguishing his conclusions from Thomas, whose work he explained was, quote, not conducted using methods that I can fully endorse, unquote, page 328. Yes, it's a subtle difference. He is kind of saying he doesn't like Thomas's work, but the detail and the subtlety is important. He's not saying it's inferior. He's saying he can't endorse those methods, right? Without the page, we have to trust the description used here. And the description here used is not totally false, but it's not quite right either. It's not an accurate description of Jones. We put the page in, we're forced to quote the place that he says it and what he says, and we're more likely to be accurate. Misdated citations. I love these. Max Weber is famous for his work on Protestant beliefs and capitalist expansion. Weber, 2017. I thought Max Weber died in the 1940s. My God, the guy is so prolific. He's still publishing in 2017. What an amazing scholar he is, publishing as he's dead. Okay, of course, yes, maybe some publisher reissued one of Max Weber's books in 2017, but that's not the correct date for his study on Protestant beliefs in capital expansion, by the way, in early modern Europe, not generally. That's his 1930 book in German. So get the date right? I mean, this is important in terms of understanding the chronology of knowledge in a field. Is Max Weber didn't say that in 2017. He said that in 1930. It was published in 2030. Okay, getting the date right. And sometimes that requires work, especially if it's a foreign language, like Max Weber was publishing in German. You need to go to the German National Bibliography and get the correct date. Oh, citation chains. I love these. When Stanley finally tracked down his target, he called to him with the immortal words, Dr. Livingston, I presume. Famous quotation, right? Henry Stanley sent into the jungle to find Dr. Livingston and said this. And where did I read that? Oh, Bell, something I was just reading on the Livingston expedition. So I'm going to quote Bell on page 6. Where did Bell get it? Bell got it from Smith. Oh, I go to Smith. Oh, Smith got it from MacDonald. Okay, I go to MacDonald. Oh, MacDonald got it from Burns. Oh, where did Burns get it? Oh, Burns got it from Varese. Oh my God, I'm exhausted. This citation chain is going to kill me. Okay, finally, Varese quoted the original statement in the New York Herald, which was made up. So a better thing would be the New York Herald wrote without evidence that when Stanley finally tracked his target, he called to him with the words, Dr. Livingston, I presume, New York Herald, August 10th, 1872, page 7. That is not a citation chain that goes right to the target, right? And by the way, as in so many of these cases, as we improve our citation practice, we improve our citation because we discover that the thing we've been citing is wrong. The whisper game. So you know the whisper game, right? You sit in a circle of people and you whisper to the next person and they whisper to the next person and whisper, whisper, whisper. And when it comes back to you, it's totally different, okay? So the top is my summary of Ochunu's 2007 book on taxation in colonial Nigeria. I would say in his documentary study of tax policy in northern Nigeria in the 1930s, Ochunu found that the poor people were able to evade taxes. They never paid any taxes. They didn't pay them, thus preventing the colonial government from carrying out developmental efforts. His study is how taxation was impossible. And the poor people didn't pay their taxes and there was no taxation, and why that created difficulty for development because there's no money, okay? Ochunu's study has been whispered and whispered and whispered and whispered until, right, 2017, we get this citation of Ochunu. In parts of West Africa, the tax burdens on farmers were so high that they created a cycle of poverty and debt that keeps their descendants poor today. Ochunu, 2007. I know this citation well because Brendan Kenhammer used it to attack my article, The Case for Colonialism, in Washington Post, right after my Case for Colonialism article. So I went back to Ochunu. Oh, actually, that's not what Ochunu's book is about. In fact, the way it's cited here is exactly 180 degrees the opposite of Ochunu's research, which is about the failure of taxes, not the heavy burden of taxes. Okay, whisper games in citations, often through citation chains or miscitation. Oh, citation politics. This is a growing problem, okay? Corruption in citations, okay, of many sorts. For instance, it is important to note the stellar work done by my dean in this field. Pirasit, 2007. Oh, I'm a faculty member and I cite my dean because I know my dean might be responsible for my promotion file or my travel budget. Okay, that's corrupt. Okay, whoever you're trying to kiss up to through a citation, that's corruption. Here's another example. The important work done by members of my citation ring. Oops, I shouldn't call it a citation ring, but I have 4 or 5 scholars and we've all agreed to cite each other's papers when we publish. That's called a citation ring. It's corrupt, it's fraudulent, and it's widespread. Okay, people basically get together and cite each other's papers in order to boost their citation counts. Journals have engaged in the practice of forcing scholars to cite articles in their journals. In recent years, many innovative articles have been published on this topic in this journal 2006, this journal 2008. I regret to say that one of the journals I've published in asked me to go through the journal and find all the articles relevant to the topic and cite them in my paper. And now, thank God not here, but in the West, we have citation justice movement. We have to cite Indigenous scholars and women and Black people because that is not racist or bigoted to cite them because of their skin color. That's actually anti-racist. So now we have these citation justice movements going on. This is all corrupt. This is toxic. This is not science. This is disrespectful. If I'm citing you because you're Black, I'm disrespecting you. I'm not respecting you, right? If I'm citing you because you're my dean, because you're in my citation ring, because you published in this journal, this is corruption. Okay, 2 more examples. Citation canons. This is canon with 2 N's. Okay, this is the military canon. Well, I have a big claim. The failure of capitalism to address poverty is widely noted, right? And you don't believe me? Okay, stand back. Ready? Boom. Now do you believe me? Okay, I knocked you down with a cannon burst of citations. You have to believe me now because I have so many citations there, right? Just brought the walls down with that cannon. Terrible. And finally, this is my last example, irrelevant citations are becoming widespread. And this is just like, I don't know why these citations are here. So, social justice is a key concern of humanity. Rawls, 1971, presumably that's the theory of justice. Okay, John Rawls wrote a famous book on justice, but why would I use that as a citation for my broad claim, right? Physics is exciting and difficult. Einstein, 1915. This is not an article by Einstein saying physics is exciting and difficult. This is just a random citation to Einstein because I know Einstein has something to do with physics. So I cite Einstein just to kind of beef up my claim, okay? Let's see. Human beings are ethical creatures. The Bible. No date, right? ND, so we're not sure. Debate when the Bible was written. Let's see, what else? Always wash behind your ears. My mother, multiple dates, okay? Good citation practice. Okay, these are totally irrelevant citations. Why even put a citation there, right? That's it's a kind of beefing up thing. So, don't accept a claim just because an authority asserts it. Booth, Colom, and Williams, The Craft of Research. I think it was in reading that book that I got onto this issue, doing a seminar for my dissertation students on research practices. And I think that's where I really started to realize this problem is growing. And I hope we can solve it together as a scholar of respectful and respecting researchers. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Keeley, for your wonderful presentation and a lot of illustrative examples for bad citations. And now we have learned something that we can all, maybe I personally have done something in the example for myself. So now I'll be more careful. So I believe that the audience and the participant on Zoom and here at the College of Local Administration have a lot of questions or comments. From 34, Chantana Arumdi, reviewers should check and make sure that the submitted manuscript is scientifically reliable and possible. There's some comment. Do you think that's the responsible of the reviewer?
Right, of course, Prichwat, you put your finger on the key question, which is whose responsibility is this, right? And so we think, well, we have peer review, so we're going to be carefully vetting citations. Of course, it's unrealistic to expect the peer reviewers to go through all these citations. I mean, it took me 6 months to go through all the citations of the articles criticizing me, and there were really only 4 of them. But it's very time consuming, especially because bad citation scholars like to cite things that are not available online. You have to go to the library to get it out, and maybe your library doesn't have it, so you have to order the book. Then they don't give a page number, so you have to go through it. Professor Rekdal at Norway talks about he has a garage full of books that he's chopped up because with no page number and no electronic version, he has to buy a book, he has to chop off the spine with a buzzsaw, then he has to feed the pages through a digital scanner, and then he has to run a search function, right? So he has a garage full of books that he's chopped up trying to search for citations. It's very time consuming. I think we need to develop an ethic of good citation practice by the scholars themselves. It's really more of a solution.
Any other questions? From Devi. Good morning. I am using abstract to cite the information. Should we read all of the of the article parts and conclude what we are going to cite?
Thanks, Devi. Yeah, the short answer is the abstract is not enough. Of course, it'll give you a general idea. It may help you to skim more efficiently. I'm not saying it's to sit in the armchair and read it, but you need to read the article. Why? Because the abstract actually is often wrong, as I've discovered. So I gave you that slide about the study done on the top 5 journals in 2017. So if you read the abstract, I mean, this is a tiny detail, but it's often, you read the abstract, they say that their study is based on 250 journals. I thought, okay, I'm going to cite the abstract, Devi. I remember doing this. And I was like, no, I'm violating my own rules. I'm going to look at their research. Okay, 2 of the articles got dropped in the process of the research. The total number was 248, but the abstract says 250. Okay, you think that's a small thing, but I think it's a general issue. The abstract is often not right. It's inaccurate. You need to find the part of the article that you're interested in, the methods, you have to cite it directly, which means, yes, the abstract is not enough.
I think Dean Pierce, you have the comments.
Bill, that earlier I said,
yeah, you didn't.
We didn't. Yeah, this is something we never talk about in Thailand. But what I would like to say, in addition to that, is it is thing that I am able to, that we will begin to be able to note that this also happened in Thailand among the Thais, some of the Thai scholars. As I give you an example, that particularly there's a way that I scratch your back and you scratch my back among the, what should I say? Among some of the academic journal that, we want to be upgraded or accredited to a higher tier on the basis of that this article has been cited more frequent or the most among all the journals, so the editors or the reverse, most of the time it's the editor requests that the author, find a place where you can cite our article more. This has already been happening, and then a few of my students were asked that way also. That we'll publish on a provisional basis that if you can see that you can cite some of the previous article that were published in this article, thing like this. Earlier I didn't think about it, but then I begin to know that there's something is emerging now.
So, and I should clarify, I'm not against citations and I'm not against citation impact measures. I think that's a good objective way to study the influence and importance of scholarship. I think it's a good way. It gives us an objective measure of the nodal importance of a piece of scholarship. It helps us to go to some of those classic articles. I'm in favor of it at a time of the kind of politicization of research and, trying to promote people on reasons other than their excellence as scholars. I am all into citation impact and citation measures. I think that's good. The problem is, every good thing also has a bad thing. As we get more refined uses of citation influence, we're in danger precisely because we start to attribute so much importance to that. It's subject to corruption, right? It's a money tree. So shake the money tree, see if any money falls out for you. People say, well, we didn't have this problem in the past. We did have this problem in the past. All that's happened is it's become worse because of citation metrics. I think citation metrics are good. I think it's good for journals to compete, to be more highly cited. I just think that the quality of the citations being used needs to be vastly improved. And corruption, outright corruption is different from malpractice, right? Outright corruption is just corruption, right? It's just breaking the rules. It's grounds for academic dismissal and retraction of your article. Okay, so there's definitely some of that. But most of this problem is not fraud. It's not intentional wrongdoing. It's laziness and sloppiness and disrespect. That's really where the problem is coming from. And I think to that extent, citation impact rankings are being based on kind of garbage data, right? So if we were to eliminate bad citations and then redo the citation impact, maybe different journals would be ranked higher. So I like citation metrics. I think they're good. I think we need to clean up the quality of citations so that they do the job that they were supposed to do.
So I have a personal, maybe, I don't know if it's a question or not, but I just found out that APA, so we normally use APA, right? And it doesn't require you to put a page number for summary and not, indirect quotation. So what do you think about that? So we just like to keep putting the page number, even though, right, regardless of the standard.
Yeah, good. So it doesn't, well, you can put a page number, right? So it's not that it doesn't require a page number if you're citing the work. But I would say anytime you're citing a work, with rare exceptions, you're citing some specific aspect of the work. Of course, maybe you're going to say like Max Weber's pioneering work on Protestant ethic and capitalism, was set off a chain of research, and then you just can cite the book. That's fine because you're literally citing the work in its entirety. But we're not. Most of us are not Max Weber. Most of us are cited not because we're seminal figures in our field, but because we made a small contribution. And if that's what's being cited, you should be specific about what particular you're drawing attention to justify the claim you're making. Yeah, and and the other thing I want to make is, so I'm a big advocate of simplified citations in my publications. What I mean by that is, I don't think we need to be citing volume and number anymore in most journal citations. Why? I think it's sufficient to cite the year, because it's very easy to search the journal and find which one it's in. So I'm not saying that good citations means like excessive detail. I also don't think we need to publish the name of the publisher or the city for a book anymore. I mean, if you're interested in that, you can go look up the citation on Library of Congress. But I don't think there's any problem leaving that out and just citing the year at the end. Right, just because, because that's a lot of details that doesn't really serve any purpose other than to maybe, in the modern with digital search, it doesn't serve a purpose. But what you need to put in is the specific page number or the mention of the specific claim that is the substantive research question, right? So I'm all for simplifying citations as much as possible, getting rid of extraneous details that are not needed for the other scholars to locate that citation, like the publisher, or who the translators were. I mean, I maybe not, I'm just not sure about that. So it's not about putting in more details, more excessive details in your citation. It's about putting in the details that matter to help others to find where and how is that claim being justified with reference to that citation.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Ana Sofia. I'm a PhD student here at Portland State University, and I'm developing my doctoral research with Dr. Gilly. So lucky me, I just learned about reflexive citations when I started my research with Dr. Gilly, but I still have doubts because it's a new practice. Like, I'm trying to get away from that bad practice of citing many articles or many authors at the same time when I'm trying to support one of my claims. So the brief question that I have for Dr. Gilly that is still is kind of a doubt in my mind or still a question. When I found two same authors that I'm doing the same claim, can I put them together? Even they are using the same methodology, but they are saying, for example, in my research, that agriculture data can be classified into 3 types. So I found that two authors are saying the same thing. Can I put them together with the page numbers and still make that claim that those two authors are saying the same, or are classifying or are defining the same thing? I don't know. That is my question. I'm still doing that wrong. But I'm continuing to improve that practice. And also, thank you, Dr. Gilly, because you made me reflect that being an academic is about being ethical, right? And put it into these ethical practices and not just publishing because I want to publish and I wanted to do it this fast with some other colleagues, and then just to kind of make my research more, I don't know if the word is reliable, or that some other people will trust that if I put this kind of canon with so many authors, they will believe my claim. So I think that is, is this kind of process that we have been getting as academics, like we're trying to compete with each other. So if I cite, 10 authors in the same line, they will believe that my claim is more valid. I have faced that because sometimes I'm writing with other colleagues and they tend to add many other authors to make a claim. And for me, it's like, why we're citing so many, if just 1 or 2 say that? And they have said to me, it's like, because we want the journal to believe us that we have read all those authors, and our claim is supported by all of the authors that we are citing that. So for me, it's about ethics, and I'm very grateful that you teach me this, Dr. Gilly, because it's like we are, as your students, are learning this now, so I can pass to my future students as well. So maybe one day we can break this and make a better practice of citation styles. So thank you, Dr. Gilly, and thank you for the opportunity to join this from Portland.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Sophia. She ended up being my dissertation student just as I got this bee in my bonnet. And,
I feel grateful. Thank you, Dr. Gilly.
Anyways, you're a hero, Sophia, because you're dealing with this right at the rock face as I emerge in this kind of concern. And my hope is that it makes you feel better about what you do, right? Because there's always this feeling of like, I need to take a shower after I write a piece of scholarship because I feel so yucky about my practices, so kind of, tawdry, all these things I'm citing I've never read. I don't even know if they said what I said they said, but you have to do it and, stop complaining. It's how we do it. And secondly, I'll say, to be honest, it's very easy for me as a full professor with enough publications under my belt and not facing any major promotion tenure issues to become all ethical and, correct. And it's not easy if you're a young scholar trying to get work done, get stuff published, get the citations in line. I understand that problem. So I'm hesitant to criticize younger scholars who do this because you're under tremendous pressure. I guess I feel more free to criticize senior scholars who do this, who are fully tenured and don't need to do this and should have learned or come to an awakening over time that this is at odds with the purpose of scholarship and odds with respect for their cited author, for their reader, and for themselves. So anyways, but that's just to say, like, I sympathize with young scholars who are thrown into this ecosystem and told or asked or expected to engage in all this malpractice. On your specific question, if you find two scholars who say exactly the same thing, my guess is one of them is quoting the other without citing them, or they're both quoting a third author without citing them, or they're both magically just arrived at the same thing. So, I guess I would always wonder about, is there a citation chain here? If they don't cite anyone for that claim, and I look around and I find that, they all are reading this book, they're not citing it for that claim, but I go to this book from 1984 and it's the one that said this, and that's really the seminal one. Again, I understand that's time consuming and you're trying to get your dissertation done and, something that you might come back to later. But I guess I feel like just be more curious. That's funny. They both said exactly the same thing without citing anyone else or citing each other. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark here. And I should maybe spend 10 or 15 minutes trying to see if I can get a more solid citation in that case. Yeah, I guess you always have to ask yourself, why am I citing this? What's the purpose? I mean, you're a scholar. People have already given their time to read what you're writing. So you have a certain kind of initial legitimacy or credibility with your reader. Now, if you find that there's a general kind of idea circulating out there in the literature, and you want to just summarize that, I would say don't cite anyone. Just say it. Just say, hey, this is the way scholars of agricultural data governance, in your case, have conceptualized agricultural data into these three fields. And because if it's such a generally circulating concept, I'm not sure what value there is in saying to the reader, you need to read this one. Because they're going to go and they're going to find that. Yeah, they're going to find it, but it's like, okay, I could have cited someone else. So it's not really serving a purpose to either, in those two senses. It's not justifying the claim you're making. If you really wanted to justify it as a citation of the literature, you need to cite the entire literature, which would be absurd. And if you're doing it just to reference the work of others, well, then you need to actually say, for instance, right, Castellanos and McCormick, in their analysis of Ecuadorian agricultural data, used this three-part typology to recategorize national statistics on agricultural output, something like that. Because then at least you're saying, here's this framework that I'm saying is out there and commonly used, being applied in a particular research setting by these authors in this journal on that page number. That seems to me more purposeful, more intentional. If what I'm kind of, when I mean reflexive citation, what's the opposite of reflexive? I mean kind of intentional, purposeful, meaningful, right?
Okay, Devi has a question on the use of applications like Mandela, or maybe perhaps EndNote or something like that. Could you, Mandela could help? Mandela, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, could you
Mandela,
please elaborate your question?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Drishawat Lowachari. Good morning, Professor Jelly. I'm also your student from DPA International at College of Local Administration, Konkan University, Thailand. And my curiosity is how to cope or cover with this issue. Could we use Mendeley or other applications to help us cite correctly or wisely, something like that? Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, Devi. So I guess my first response, and I think what other people would say, is Mendeley is more the problem than the solution. Because it's citation software that has caused this problem to go nuclear. Right? Like I say, this problem is not new. It predates the use of computers. It started when we were still using pen and paper and library index cards. But software and word processing software and citation software caused it to go nuclear. Why? Because Mendeley now, and most of these software, like I use EndNote, they will actually automatically import not just the citation, but the abstract, right? They will directly go to the journal. So you used to just search your own library or the references you had intentionally imported. Now you can search through your citation reference software onto an aggregator database like JSTOR or academic search. So now basically academic research has become basically a citation list. Like we're not even experiencing it first through the academic portal, we're experiencing first through our citation software, right? And we're actually doing our research through our software, through our citation software now, right? We're doing a search and it's downloading citations into our Mendeley or our EndNote, and our entire understanding of that research comes from the abstract that gets downloaded with the citation. Okay, then we do a cannon blast. Boom, 30 citations. Boom, tell 10 citations, right? And then see if any of them are my friends. Give them a few call outs. See if any of them are in the journal I'm trying to get my article published in. So again, I'm not anti-software. I'm not anti-Mendeley. I'm not anti-EndNote. I use EndNote myself. It's very useful to just manage your citations, but it comes with a big danger, right? Which is it makes it so easy to engage in citation malpractice. So I'm not saying don't use it, Devi, but I'm saying realize it's like crack cocaine, right?
Thanks, Devi. Any other comments or yeah?
Okay, I have one question, Professor. How do I cite something that's already cited somewhere else? Because in some case, I found I cannot access some of the original documents. Yeah. Yeah. When I read some articles, I found some relevant information in this article. I can cite, but when I want to cite, I want to read this citation, I cannot access it because it has to be bought by dollar or something like that. Yeah,
Thanks, Mon. Right. So now you're asking me awkward questions like what to do when you'd like to be a good citation scholar, but you can't, but you still need to get published and finish your dissertation. So I don't know what the answer to that is, Mon, actually. I mean, I don't want you to engage in a miscite, but I also don't want you to not be able to do your research because you can't get the original. I guess my answer would be that you should be honest, that you're citing a piece of work you have access to, and say who cites so-and-so, and then in a footnote say, you know, the researcher was unable to obtain a copy, you know, in time for this publication. I mean, I guess I would just prefer an honest account of like, I can't get this citation, I tried. At least then, you know, you're showing the respect for the cited source. Obviously, you know that there's actually a site you should have cited, you didn't. You're showing respect for your reader by in a sense being honest about the dilemma, and you're being respectful to yourself by saying, hey, I have limited resources. My library doesn't get this journal. They don't have interlibrary loan, and I'm not ashamed of that. It's just something I'm gonna be honest about. So I guess my answer is it also kind of leaves a reminder to yourself in your own research. If you ever get a chance, go back. You know, maybe you end up doing a postdoc at National University of Singapore. And okay, look, I remember I made a note to myself that to go find this. Okay, I'm at NUS. I can get anything I want in the next day, and suddenly I can go back and revisit that. Often it involves almost reconceptualizing yourself as a writer rather than a researcher, because I think the moment we consider ourselves a researcher, we find ourselves in this ecosystem of thinking. And maybe when you learn this practice, you should start to think of yourself more as a writer, right? A writer is not under any pressure to cite, but a writer cares about every word on the page. Every single word is meaningful and intentional. And once you get into that kind of writer mode of careful writing, you'll find that your citation practices become better too, because each of those citations is like a precious gem, right? And you're holding it in your hands, looking at it, respecting it, right? Treating it with due honor, right? Because it's part of your work, right? It's part of the fabric of what you are writing. So, you know, we can talk about all kinds of fixes, better peer review. You know, people say, oh, we can have artificial intelligence can solve this problem, right? We'll just run every paper through an AI system and big data will solve it. There may be some interesting fixes there. I don't know. I'm not going to discount them, but I think that it's more about a mindset of respect and a mindset of care in research.
I really appreciate your experiences with us, and we never thought about this issue until you brought it up today. And I began to realize that, yes, we do have this problem in Thailand, although we didn't talk about it. And thanks for your lecture. I think with the limited time that we have, we really have to close this session. Again, we hope that this is the beginning. And it's more importantly, it's a kind of awareness when it's not happened. It's an awareness of the problem that is important. Thank you.
Please give it up to Dr. Buskili. Thank you, all participants. We have this kind of special lectures all year round. So please keep in touch with the College of Local Administration via our Facebook page or website. Thank you so much and have a good one.